What's up everybody, Cody McCarty here with Explore Travel Capture, and today we are going to be talking about 5 ways you can instantly make your travel films better, and honestly, not just your travel films. These tips are simple, and it doesn't require any extra gear. You literally won't have to spend any money, and you can start implementing them today, and it will dramatically improve your films. So let's just jump right into it with our first and most important tip: lighting. Lighting will do far more for your footage than anything else you could possibly think of. When it comes to lighting, it literally doesn't matter if you have the latest and greatest camera, nothing can fix bad lighting. Now, whether your light is coming from a natural light source or you're using video lights, learning to utilize light to create a good image is critical in improving your films. Now, your best free light is going to be the sun, but it isn't always the best light. Early mornings and into the evenings are usually the most ideal times to shoot outside, especially to get that cinematic, beautiful goodness you want to see out of your films. It gives you nice contrast, but still provides a softer light on subjects. I often like to get a variety of shots at this time, and I'll use golden hour to play with different angles, and I'll try to find ways to backlight my subjects, just because this is one of my favorite looks, especially when shooting people. I do have to say though, these shots prove a little difficult with lower end cameras. When you have a higher end camera with more dynamic range, it just allows you to do more with these specific types of shots. It isn't a deal breaker, as some of the most affordable cameras now have decent enough dynamic range, but this will require some experimenting on your part with your camera to understand its strengths and its weaknesses. Now, obviously, you can't shoot only at golden hour, especially if you're just trying to capture some of your adventures. I always like to try and plan out where and what I want to shoot with my limited golden hour time. If I have the opportunity to scout a location, I utilize an app called PhotoPills. It gives me a live AR view of where the sun will be in the scene at any specific time of day. But I understand we don't always get to scout locations ahead of time. This is why I will encourage you to practice, even if it's in your backyard, shooting at different times of day to better understand the different lighting you'll get from the sun. This will help you be better prepared for the moments that really matter. Now, shooting midday and filming people, you should try to take advantage of shadows or anything that can diffuse the harsh light on your subjects. If you have a little bit of money, you can invest in a 5-in-1 reflector diffuser like I have here. They are a little difficult to use solo and are usually better with an extra set of hands, but these diffusers are much more practical for run and gun smaller shoots than the giant scrims we use on larger productions. Also, if you have clouds, be mindful that they can dramatically change an image and often can create perfect diffuse lighting for filming people. So if you have clouds in the sky, watching for those and timing your shots will really help you out. Now, if you can't shoot in ideal lighting, this doesn't mean don't shoot. I used to always stop shooting when I didn't like the lighting, and when I went to edit my film, I regretted it every time. So it's important to know what your best lighting scenarios are and how to get the best lighting in your films, but don't stop filming, don't stop creating, and make sure you get the shot, because you don't have to include it in the final edit, but you'll be happy you had it. Our second tip is to have a plan and patience. Often when you plan a trip, you know what you want to see. I personally create a checklist on my phone of shots I really want to try and get, and usually if that place is popular, it is likely to be a little crowded. But obviously, you want an unobstructed clean shot of you or maybe just friends and family. Sometimes taking 5 minutes to wait for a gap in people will take your shot from good to great. You also just want to make sure you factor in some time to get these shots in your plans. Now, patience is especially important when shooting wildlife or landscapes. I usually set up my composition and leave the camera recording, waiting to see if there's any motion that really brings the footage to life. That can be a bird flying across the frame, or waiting on wildlife to give you some kind of interesting motion. That will make a dramatic difference in your shots. So be patient, don't freak out about leaving your shot recording for a while. Digital film is cheap. Now, this tip is simpler said than done. It really is a discipline, and I still to this day have to remind myself to do it. Now, the next tip is arguably one of the most important in making a good video, and that is sound. Whether it's music or just ambient audio, this is an easy way to send your films to the next level. The sounds in the film will increase the emotional resonance with your audience, and the song choice often sets the tone, like in this sequence here. So now let's imagine I edited this tense action sequence with the wrong soundtrack. That music really didn't fit the tone for that particular project, so make sure you pick the appropriate song for the tone of your video. Ask yourself, does your family vacation really need to look like the trailer for the next big action movie? Another thing often overlooked is ambient audio. I was guilty of this very early on, and taking just a minute to be silent and record the sounds of the environment makes a huge difference. I also like to make sure I set up my mic nice and close to points of interest to get nice clean audio, like in this clip here. If I hadn't recorded the ambiance of my fire up close with my mic, I would have been left with just the audio from the wide shot, which sounds like this. The audio from the wide just doesn't give that same campfire feel. Good ambient audio creates deeper connections to the locations and the subject of the film. Also, having that recording of just the fire, I can overlay it with both clips to give the transition between the two clips a smoother feel. When you're working on audio mixes for your films, editing to the beat of the music, having smooth ambient sound transitions all help to maintain the flow of your films. Which leads us to our fourth tip, transitions. When you are out filming, you want to have the final edit in mind. This means thinking about how your shots will flow into the next. When you cut between an establishing shot to, let's say, the introduction of a character, by including a familiar landscape or landmark in each of these shots, you make it easier for your audience to maintain a sense of where they are in the journey. When you're transitioning from maybe a wide shot to more of a medium shot, you want to make sure the motion between the shots are consistent. It also helps when you transition to maintain similar composition of your subjects. With these shots, we start with a slide to the right and cut when our subjects are center of the frame. Keeping our subjects nice and centered in the transition makes the cut a lot less jarring. The audience doesn't have to hunt for where our characters are in the crowd. Now, I mentioned briefly how having motion in a shot can bring your footage to life. There's a popular saying in the film industry, motion is emotion. This is why motion is going to be our final tip. Now, the whole point of video is to show motion. Otherwise, you can just take a photo. This is especially true if what you're filming doesn't have a lot of motion in it. If you add in-camera motion, it will create more depth to the shot and brings viewers into the story a little bit more, because now they are moving through this world. There are a number of ways to add movement to a shot, but you don't need an expensive setup to do it. You can accomplish fairly steady movement handheld. When shooting handheld, I definitely keep my camera centered, and I usually will add motion by swaying my body side to side. It takes practice, and a lot of modern cameras have some form of image stabilization, which will help for these shots. But swaying side to side, as many points of contact on your camera, these will all help you with those stable handheld shots. You can even put it on a tripod and just push the tripod forward. Just anything you can do to add a little bit of motion. Now, different types of motion will create different feelings. Pushing in with this shot invites you into the scene. Pulling out conveys a feeling of leaving this location. Planning and coordinating motion is important to your films. Like in this drone shot, it creates a smoother flow for the story. With this one shot, I not only show you our location, but introduce you to a character who you will follow through this setting, all without needing to cut through several different shots. I think motion to a viewer feels less like looking through a window and being allowed to walk through the door. Motion is so important, and understanding what different types of motion will do for your film could be its own entire video. But play around with it in your films. You technically don't even need to shoot in camera movement to explore different types of motion. You can fake this with editing software by panning and zooming into your clips with keyframes. Just think about the story when you incorporate any kind of motion. And know that too much motion can be obnoxious, so always be intentional with it. So there you have my 5 tips to instantly improve your filmmaking that will cost you nothing. So go out there, have fun, and keep capturing. I appreciate you joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And if there's anything that you would like me to explain in photography or videography, leave a comment down below, and I'll try to get back to you and make a video on it. But once again, thank you for watching.